Good morning and welcome to Rising. We've got another great show for you today as we count down the end of 2025. It's almost all over. Isn't that crazy?
It's weird. And the days are always like a mush between Christmas and New Year.
That is true.
What do you do with these days?
I guess you work.
Vision board, work, figure out your plan. Are you like a big planner for like your goals for next year, or you kind of just let it go how it goes?
No, I don't plan. I don't know what's going on later today. I know there's a lot I have to do. I'll find out after Rising. I do one thing at a time, then I go, okay, what's next on the event planner agenda thing?
Okay, I'm like the exact opposite. I got like 20 things already listed out that I want to accomplish.
Busy times, busy times. I would like to work a little bit less hard in 2026, but we'll see if that
I'm declaring it the year of ease for us all.
The year of ease?
Yes, it's work effectively, not as hard, but effectively. So when you are working, it's really, really good stuff.
That would be nice.
Coming up on Rising, the New York Times profiled Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, I'm sure you guys have seen it, who had some quite revealing things to say about President Trump.
Plus, Trump met with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu yesterday, saying he would support bombing Iran again if it revived its nuclear program.
And in 1998, Americans had some predictions for this year, 2025. We'll see which ones of those came true. But first, Robby, what's on your radar?
You can probably guess we're talking about the Minnesota fraud scandal. Most Americans, of course, outraged to learn about this vast amount of fraud committed in that state under Governor Tim Walz's watch. A fraud that involves welfare abuse, Medicare-related schemes, even fake daycare centers that received millions in public funding, even though allegedly they did not enroll kids. Now, independent YouTuber Nick Shirley doing great work exposing this last kind of fraud. His documentary has been viewed 1.5 million times already on YouTube. And it's only been up for 3 days. Now, in the documentary, he visits child care centers and he claims that there are no kids being watched there.
I want to put my son Joey in daycare. Cause I need a spot to put my son Joey.
Yes.
Is this your daycare center?
No, I work there. What's happened?
I just want to put a child in daycare, but all the daycare centers seem to be closed. No one's opening the doors.
You work here?
I was, yeah. What's happened?
Where are the kids?
Yeah?
It says it's licensed for 74 children. Right here, state of Minnesota. Where are the kids? They got paid $1.26 million in fiscal year 2025. It says they have a capacity for 74 children.
When?
Where are the kids? Right here. State of Minnesota website.
This matter obviously needs to be looked into further. Taxpayers do not want public resources being spent on fraudulent charities or schools or medical services. Obviously, we need to hear the child care center's sides of the story, though it does not inspire tremendous confidence when the word learning is misspelled on the sign.
From this daycare center, we headed over to the infamous Quality Learning Center, which actually spells Quality Leering Center on the outside of their sign. That's how blatant this fraud is here at this daycare.
Don't open up!
So this is Quality Leering Center. I meant to say Quality Learning Center.
Don't open
They
up!
said they spelled learning wrong.
Don't open up!
How do you have ice here, ma'am? I'm literally a YouTuber.
Don't open up!
Ma'am, what do you think about the fraud that's taking place here in Minnesota?
Don't open up! We have ice!
And what do you think about this place being licensed for 99 children?
That woman screaming at Nick Shirley and his associate. The associate, by the way, has an excellent Minnesota accent. The other person yelling at them, wrongly accusing them of being affiliated with ICE. Nick Shirley is not affiliated with ICE. He's an independent journalist who has questions for child care centers that receive millions of dollars from the government and don't appear to be operational whatsoever. Something everybody should be mad about if things are as they seem. But notorious leftist streamer Hasan Piker, I guess, feels differently. He wrote on X, "I don't know what kind of fraud Somalis in daycares are doing, but I think it's a separate crime to try and storm with a camera into a daycare with kids in it." Piker obviously didn't watch the video because Shirley did not storm into the daycare. He knocked on the front door. Also, the daycare, at least the one with the misspelled learning sign at any rate, didn't have any kids there. There were no kids at that time. That's the whole point. Now, of course, it's nice to see Piker taking a break from praising communist China as his ideal form of government and whitewashing the atrocities being committed there. Remember, this is a guy who has routinely been held up by the mainstream media as a smart, edgy, progressive commentator. The New York Times praised him as perhaps the liberal answer to Joe Rogan because he's muscly. Remember that? Look, if you can't call a spade and say that vast pilfering of public resources is a crime and needs to be prosecuted to the fullest extent under the law, then you need to get out of the commentary game. The American people are not going to stand for what has occurred under Tim Walz's watch, nor should they. It's appalling, and it undermines the very foundations of our society as it encourages public mistrust in our institutions, our government, even in our neighbors. No one likes the idea that they are living next to people who will gleefully steal as much money as they can get their hands on. It's wrong, and it's got to stop.
Now we know that.
Would you enroll your kids in the Leering Center?
I can't get over it. I know, it's not right. That's ridiculous. And you know what? It's really important to note that I appreciate independent journalists, and it's really important to allow the Leering Center or whomever else to say whatever their side of the story is, to also track down that these places all receive funding and make sure that that's vetted information, because we have it from the video, but we need to make sure that that all tracks the amounts of money that they were saying. No matter if it's $1, you shouldn't receive funds for something that doesn't actually exist and was just a paper shell to collect COVID funds. We know that fraud was rampant during the pandemic, and it wasn't just Minnesota, but in any rate, it's not the pandemic anymore. And we know that Tim Walz has put forward a task force starting on December 12th to look into stuff like this. A lot of people criticize that, saying December 12th, 2025 is way too little too late. What were you doing all this time? I have a different perspective. I'm critical of his response right now in December, but when I think about his response during the pandemic, he says that he was following federal guidelines that loosened a lot of the restrictions around collecting funds, which opened up more opportunities for fraud. So I'll give that leeway to all governors and leaders during the pandemic that were trying to urgently respond to a dire circumstance. But after you hit like 2022, I think states had to really take some autonomy here to gather their resources and figure out what the plan was, because we got a little bit of a hold on the pandemic that was taking us all over by storm. Everyone wearing a mask, getting different guidelines and not knowing how to move forward, to a more calm version of COVID where people weren't just, on ventilators every single day, and we had updated news where we couldn't even step out of the house. So I think that governors then had a chance to step away from what federal agencies were telling them and decide what looks best for their states, and even push back in instances like this so that we don't have this much fraud committed. I do think that Democrats could easily respond to this in a very direct and serious way and say, one, fraud is wrong. Anybody of Somali descent, anybody of American descent, anybody who committed fraud during the pandemic or afterwards should be prosecuted. The second hand, they should also say President Trump's response to the Somali community as a whole is not the right approach. And that is leading all the way into the side of racism, which we don't want to do. And that's not America. And they should just be able to say those things. They should also be able to say that Minnesota is not the only state that experienced massive fraud during the pandemic, and point out that if we do start opening these investigations, which we should, make sure that we're looking at states across the country and make sure that everybody. And there's been millions and millions of dollars and but millions of dollars associated to people that have been prosecuted already that should continue to be prosecuted. It's not like they can just get away with this forever. But those three things should be on Democrats' list of pointing out, to say that we can talk about all these things and not just run away from it and say, well, maybe there are kids in the daycare. Maybe there are. And then we do need reporting about that.
Well,
but
right.
Don't.
Yes, the information I was looking at this morning suggests to me that it's possible that some of those daycares just didn't have kids there because they actually had been closed down by the state recently. But it looks like, based on the paper trail available, it does look like they were continuing to receive funding despite being closed. So I'm not sure so the continuing to receive funding is probably the more fraudulent aspect.
Right.
But now also people in that video say, well, nobody's ever been in that daycare. Now, who knows? There can be false witnesses who say things that are incorrect.
Like the one screaming ICE, right? It could be
right.
Everyone in the video could be.
And I don't want to just take I don't want to take the word for it of a single. It doesn't matter to me that he's not a professional journalist. That's fine. Amateur journalists can do great work. They can do great work. Going outside the system. So the work should be judged on its own merits. I think it's impressive and it's interesting. It requires obviously further collaboration so that we're not getting taken for a ride. I'm not saying we're getting taken for a ride, but I do want to verify and make sure more. But what I'm learning from the information I'm processing is that it looks like they were still getting the money despite not being open, which is the exact kind of fraud that now the feds are going to come in and investigate, and that seems totally appropriate to me. Coming up on Rising, President Trump's apparently threatening another strike against Iran, and he says the U.S. carried one out in Venezuela as well. We'll be right back.
President Trump warning Iran Monday that the U.S. may carry out another strike if it reestablishes its nuclear program.
That comment coming as the president welcomed Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to his Mar-a-Lago home on Monday. Take a listen.
I hope they're not trying to build up again, because if they are, we're going to have no choice but very quickly to eradicate that buildup. So I hope Iran is not trying to build up, as I've been reading that they're building up weapons and other things. And if they are, they're not using the sites that we obliterated, but they're using possibly different sites. We know exactly where they're going, what they're doing.
Trump also suggested that he would support an Israeli attack on Iran if they begin to rebuild their nuclear program. Now, for those concerned that repeated strikes may kick off another war in the Middle East, got bad news. Iranian officials seem to think they're already at war. The Iranian president declared over the weekend he believed Iran was, quote, in a full-fledged war with America, Israel, and Europe, adding that, quote, they do not want our country, Iran, to stand on its feet.
Now, Trump's former UN ambassador and frequent critic, Nikki Haley, pounced on the Iranian president's comments, writing on X, "This is exactly why President Trump was right to strike Iran's nuclear sites. We should take them at their word. No deal will change what Iranian regime believes. They don't think Israel or the United States should exist. Countering them means being clear-eyed about who they are and standing with Israel." And Democratic Senator John Fetterman echoing that in his own post, writing, "Iran can't ever develop a nuclear weapon. Fully supported the strike earlier this year, fully support any future strikes to damage or destroy their nuclear ambitions." And Trump's former lawyer, Alan Dershowitz, took it a step further in an appearance on Newsmax. Let's take a look.
There'll never be peace in the Middle East unless there's regime change in Iran. The current Iranian regime is the major barrier to peace in the Middle East. And if President Trump wants to be known as the peace president, he has to be in support of regime change. And then there can be deals with Saudi Arabia and all the other deals.
On a separate front, the administration appears to be turning up the pressure on Venezuelan dictator Nicolas Maduro.
Trump confirmed in a radio interview on Friday that the strikes have been carried out on land targets in Venezuela. He said that the U.S., quote, knocked out a big facility, but didn't give many more details. Trump was asked about it yesterday, and here's what he said.
There was a major explosion in the dock area where they load the boats up with drugs. They load the boats up with drugs, so we hit all the boats, and now we hit the area. It's the implementation area. That's where they implement, and that is no longer around.
The New York Times is reporting that the CIA conducted the strike on a dock where officials believe Tren de Aragua was storing narcotics and potentially moving those drugs onto boats. They report that no one was on the dock at the time and no one was killed. Regime change, regime change, regime change. Venezuela, Dershowitz wants us to do regime change in Iran. That sounds very costly and messy and bloody and not even necessarily likely to produce a subsequent regime that would be better than the current Iranian regime. What evidence do we have of that? So that's a utterly ridiculous idea. Doing regime change in Venezuela is comparatively not as nearly as crazy as doing it in Iran. I'm still very reluctant to say that it's a good strategy. It's certainly not a strategy that should be pursued, in my view, without congressional accountability occurring first. The strikes to take out the nuclear program in Iran were not aimed at regime change. They were aimed at thwarting Iran's nuclear ambitions. I had a lot of skepticism of that kind of approach anyway. Iran is not a threat to us. They're not a threat to the U.S. of A. They're a threat to Israel, maybe. So that sounds like a them problem, not an us problem, and I resent being dragged into Israel's war, again, without any congressional say-so. We cannot outsource our foreign policy decisions to a different nation. It is our job to determine what foreign policy makes sense for the U.S. and its citizens, not for some other country. So this is me at my most, America first, Israeli skeptical. It's not, we get to decide our foreign policy, not them. And I don't like that.
The biggest thing to me is the America First piece and the fact that everybody, for the most part, agrees that nobody wants to get dragged back into the yesterday of America, where wars were something that we were constantly involved with and tinkering on and trying to change regimes. I think that we've forgotten that we're supposed to, or the president has forgotten that he's promised to prioritize America and avoid conflict. And this seems like it'll end us up in another open-ended conflict with no off-ramp in sight, because we're now on Venezuelan soil. And we're going to blow things up for drugs. We're talking about fentanyl and other conversations, but the primary drug coming out of Venezuela is cocaine. So we're not even attacking the actual problem. We're skipping over Congress when we're making decisions to blow up boats in the water and not being clear about if people that actually had narcotics, or if there were civilians on board, or if any casualties are coming out of that. And we're in the middle of infighting within our own country in Congress about the next steps here, and President Trump seemingly just taking the steps that he thinks are appropriate, that if you look at this with clear eyes will involve us in foreign conflicts. And that's just the Venezuela piece. The other piece in Iran, I don't think that we would end up in a full-scale war with them. But if they're saying we're at war with them and we did bomb the nuclear facility earlier this year, it's like, well, we are asking to just ratchet it up. And even though I don't think Iran's in a position to do anything major to the United States, we're going to be at constant conflict and back and forth with this country, because now we've jumped into the best case scenario for Israel, which is still not America first.
Right. The Trump administration has to take a long, hard look in the mirror and say, are we executing on our campaign promise to be America first and to be, no new wars, no foreign entanglements, that kind of thing? I don't know how they could possibly, despite some promising things early on, despite, attempts at peace in various places that I support. I'm not saying I dislike everything they're doing, but I don't know how they could look at Israel pressuring us to do more against Iran, Venezuelan regime change without congressional authorization, blowing up boats without congressional authorization. How could they look at all of that? Israel's going to violate the peace deal in Gaza, and okay, what was that all for? Like, how can Trump say to himself, we're doing what I ran on in terms of no more foreign conflict?
Yeah, and I don't think that he can.
Like a big mistake.
Yeah,
it seems like it's going to let down the base, frankly, and there's just way too much letting down the base right now. There's way too much pessimism now among Trump supporters, voters. They're starting to turn on each other. The media, the commentary people in MAGA world are in a civil war. The Joe Rogan, Trump voter people came into the fold. They're not happy with a lot of the immigration excesses, some other things. The coalition is fraying, and there aren't enough wins, and this is one. There's not a win on foreign policy because he's not doing what he said he was going to do.
I couldn't have bashed him better myself.
Well, it's not bashing. It's polite. It's encouragement to do more of what you said you were going to do.
Up next, the Justice Department says that the DNC and RNC pipe bomb suspect gave a detailed confession to the FBI. We're going to tell you more. Don't go anywhere.
Filing from the DOJ says that Brian J. Cole, the man allegedly accused of planning two pipe bombs, outside the Democratic and Republican National Committee offices on the evening of January 6, 2021, the Capitol riot, he gave a, quote, detailed confession to the FBI. The DOJ memo alleges that Cole said he became bewildered by the claims that 2020 election had been stolen from President Trump. He believed someone needed to speak up on behalf of people who thought the allegations of election fraud were true. Cole said he wasn't targeting the joint session of Congress on January 6, 2021. The suspect, per the DOJ memo, explained that something just snapped. After watching everything getting worse, he targeted the political parties because they were, quote, in charge. Cole added, I really don't like either party at this point.
Now, Cole allegedly told investigators that he learned how to make the black powder inside the devices from a video game that listed the ingredients, and he watched science-related YouTube videos to help put the bombs together.
U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro said in a statement on X, these documents make clear that my office with our law enforcement partners are working vigorously to secure justice in the attempted attack on our nation's political institutions nearly 5 years after the devices were placed and thankfully failed to detonate.
Independent journalist Mehdi Hasan reacted to the latest development, writing on X, quote, oh, so the pipe bomber suspect from January 6th was an election denier. yet more incitement of political violence from Trump and co.
Oh, please, Mehdi. Okay, what are the rules? When is it someone else's fault when you do something crazy and when is it not? Because I'm sure Mehdi and all people, liberal people, will complain when Trump and Vance said that the assassination attempt against him is the fault of left-wing radicals, or that Charlie Kirk being assassinated is the fault of left-wing people in general, not just specifically the person who did it, but whoever else, and that all gets condemned, and now there's some confused, crazy, rambling person who did this, who had some bad ideas about the election, maybe, as far as we can tell, and now that's all Trump's fault. It's just like, it's a complete double standard.
So I don't
can't
think
be both ways.
I don't think that we should start from a place where we're finding out information, and in this case, luckily, no lives were lost, and it was a bomb that didn't
Took him 2
detonate.
seconds. It's Trump's fault.
But I think that the response is not appropriate to point fingers and blame immediately, but for President Trump and his team that constantly this entire year has pointed fingers and blamed on every incident immediately, perhaps they should look in the mirror and look at this incident and say, this man said he was incited by the idea that the election was stolen, and they should maybe look inwards. This is not for any Democrats or anybody on the outside to say who may have caused this. If they are the same people that have been bringing up the rise of left-wing violence and all these terms they've been using over and over and over again, then perhaps the same people that are saying that should keep that equal opportunity energy around circumstances like this and not be silent. It's not Mehdi Hasan's job, I don't think, to do that. And I don't think it's either job to constantly point fingers. I don't think that's the right strategy in any case. But for a president that's leading the country and behaves like that all the time, we see all the time, his team's the first one to point out how the left is causing more violence than ever.
The left does that. The left says that the right is causing more violence than ever. We hear that all the time. Look at all this right-wing political violence, all this right-wing rhetoric. I mean, Mehdi Hasan is doing a perfect example of that.
He is doing it. I don't think, for me, it's not the right strategy.
Right.
I think for you, that's why for you and I, we're not going to debate that we disagree about that, because we agree that the right strategy is not to figure out who most caused this.
There's something quick I want to get in before we wrap this.
Okay.
And look, I have no doubt, really, that this person is guilty. Fine, fair enough. The idea that he confessed to the FBI, people confess all the time because police interrogations are intimidating psychologically. People confess to things they didn't do. People are highly suggestible under these conditions. So the fact that they're just telling us that he confessed and said this is why it was wouldn't be enough to sell me that was the case. I would like to see the entire video footage of the interview and see how they put this idea in his head. And again, I'm not questioning whether he did it. It seems pretty likely that he did. But, he confessed, slam dunk, is not always as much of a slam dunk. Everybody confesses, including the things they never did, because police interrogations are psychologically vexing.
All right.
Just saying.
Coming up on Rising, I'll be discussing the New York Times profile on Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene and what she had to say about President Trump. Stick around.
And now, Lindsey, what's in your lens today?
We have to talk about this, Robby. So there are plenty of political breakups in Washington, but this one matters because of who is talking and what she's willing to say out loud. So in a sweeping New York Times Magazine profile that you've probably seen, Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene is even more firmly breaking up with the man she once called her, quote, political godfather, and she's not tiptoeing around it. She says the rupture came from growing disillusionment from a president who, in her telling, refuses dissent, demands loyalty without returning it, and governs with fear instead of faith. According to the Times, their fallout deepened as Greene broke up with Trump and other Republicans on issues ranging from calling Gaza war a genocide to objecting to crypto policies favoring billionaires to opposing tariffs that hurt her district, criticizing foreign student visas, and warning about letting ACA subsidies expire. But the real turning point for MTG came earlier this year during remarks that Trump delivered at a memorial for slain conservative activist Charlie Kirk. In that speech, you'll remember Trump said this about Kirk.
He did not hate his opponents. He wanted the best for them. That's where I disagreed with Charlie. I hate my opponent. And I don't want the best for them. I'm sorry.
Now, by contrast, Kirk's widow, Erica Kirk, publicly forgave the suspected killer. That contrast sat with Greene, and she told the Times, quote, It just shows where his heart is, and that's the difference, with her having a sincere Christian faith and proves that he does not have any faith. From there, the cracks widened. And then there was this whole Epstein problem. Green told the Times that the Epstein case represents, quote, everything wrong with Washington, calling it a story of rich, powerful elites doing horrible things and getting away with it. And the women are the victims. After meeting with several victims in closed-door House oversight hearing, she said their testimony was believable and personal. So when Green threatened to name the alleged abusers at a press conference, she tells the Times Trump called her angrily, yelling so loudly that staff could hear him throughout her office suite. According to Green, when she questioned his resistance, Trump replied, quote, "My friends will get hurt." That moment opened a bigger question. Why fight so hard to dismiss Epstein as a hoax? And who exactly was being protected? Green also took a moment to look inward during the interview, acknowledging her role in the culture she now criticizes, telling the magazine, quote, "After Charlie died, I realized that I'm part of this toxic culture. I really started looking at my faith. I wanted to be more like Christ." She even took aim at what she called the MAGA Mar-a-Lago sexualization, saying, quote, "I have 2 daughters, and I've always been uncomfortable with how those women puff up their lips and enlarge their breasts. I've never spoken about it publicly, but I've been planning to." And she didn't stop there. She's also accusing Speaker Mike Johnson of answering directly to the White House, saying, "I want you to know that Johnson is not our speaker." She went on to explain he literally is 100% under direct orders from the White House, and many, many Republicans are so furious about that, but they're cowards. Now, the administration has fired back on all this, with White House spokesperson Davis Ingalls saying, in part, quote, "President Trump remains the undisputed leader of the greatest and fastest growing political movement in American history, the MAGA movement. On the other hand, Congresswoman Green is quitting on her constituents in the middle of her term and abandoning the consequential fight we're in. We don't have time for her petty bitterness." Now, I know this is all a lot, but it's more than just a petty feud. MTG is exposing how loyalty, power, and silence are enforced. And whether you believe Marjorie Taylor Greene or not, one thing is undeniable. When someone this close starts talking this loudly, it definitely means the ground is shifting. So she had a lot in there. I think from the stuff that we already knew about the reasons why she didn't like Trump or didn't like his response. I mean, didn't like the way that he treated her. But when he responded in Charlie Kirk's funeral, I think a lot of people were looking at that memorial service and saying, wow, that's, a bit aggressive when his wife said she forgives the killer.
Yeah, but I mean, and I didn't care for that either. I didn't care for what he said about Rob Reiner. There's no end to Trump saying gross, ill-timed things. We've known that about him the entire time he's been, in political circles. So I have a hard time believing that she or anyone else suddenly realized that Trump is not kind of a upstanding moral beacon in terms of his rhetoric towards people he dislikes and rhetoric towards the media, right? That's been fairly consistently not the greatest thing about him. It's something his most diehard fans love and everyone else finds off-putting, even if they have to reluctantly come around to support him. They don't love it.
And we agree about that.
Yeah.
But the Epstein thing was another big bombshell to me, that he said, quote, "My friends will get hurt." His friends. She said that he called her on speakerphone, screaming so loudly that she was there and meeting with the victims, that her office aides heard him screaming because he was on speakerphone, and said, "My friends will get hurt," and they were arguing about it. And so that was another thing that set her off as a woman who's trying to grapple with her own Christian values. This is from the article, not me paraphrasing.
I mean, she's trying to grapple with the fact that he apparently told her, or someone in his orbit told her, don't run for governor, you won't win, and she doesn't like that, right? That's the other side of all this.
She said that he supported her political ambitions in the future and actually championed her in that article to run for governor. So now we're just taking whose side of the story is it? I mean, but the Epstein thing has to be a problem. If he called her and said, "My friends will get hurt," I mean, why are we protecting your friends instead of protecting, or first of all, alerting the American public to abuses and protecting victims that actually did get hurt versus your friends that did the hurting?
Why don't they just speak up then?
the victims did speak to Congress, and she said she was going to be the one to air this all out. What do you mean? This is all these things that we're getting from this interview, and you have nothing to say about it besides, oh, okay. And she's complaining about real things. She's complaining. What about the over-sexualization that she says happens at Mar-a-Lago? She has daughters that she wants to look up to the way that women should look in office, and she says that there's actually something that happens when you go down there and want to work for President Trump's team, that you need to look a certain way. She said people are getting their bodies done, their lips done. There's like a whole thing.
I mean, I'm not a big fan of what they call the Mar-a-Lago face look.
So you know what I'm talking about.
I don't know that it's overly sexual. I think it's just there's too much lip from my perspective. But some people like that kind of thing.
Okay.
I don't know if it's overly sexualized.
That's what she said.
Not
She
like
said
walking
the mom
around in
of two
bikinis
daughters
or something.
Huh?
Not like walking around in bikinis at the White House now.
I know, but it's like the fact that, if there's a Mar-a-Lago look, it's like, oh, to fit in this administration, you need to do something different to your body. So it's like, you can't just come as you are.
Do you? I don't know.
That's what she's saying. She felt that way. So you were not, your boat was not rocked in any way by this interview with the New York Times. That's really interesting.
I mean,
I think a lot of people were like, wow, you're saying that.
I think
the word
she's
friends in
taken
regards
it
to
personally that she's lost Trump's favor, and moreover that she's lost the support of the Trump base to some degree. That she's getting, she used to put things on social media and just get, like, and now she puts things on social media and people scream at her that she's a traitor to Trump. And I think that's psychologically destabilizing. If you've ever been the subject of a Twitter pile-on or something, it happens to me with some frequency. It doesn't make you feel good. You got to have a thick skin, and you just got to you win some, you lose some. They'll be back with me on something else in the future. And it seems like she's not quite handling that great. I don't say this with any malice toward her. I think she's a nice woman. I think she has a lot of constructive things to offer. I appreciate that she's grown as a person and wants to tone down the harshness of our political rhetoric. I think that's all good. I think a lot of what she stands for is good. I've started to break with her on some of the Epstein stuff or aspects of it, and I don't agree with her latest healthcare thing, but I do agree with her that the tariffs have gone too far and the immigration raids have gone too far, and I would rather have her in Congress, or at least serving out the rest of her term, joining Thomas Massie and a few others in making that case. But if she doesn't want to be there, she doesn't want to be there. So what can I say? I wish her the best. I really do.
I really wonder what's next for her. Some people say president. I don't see how that's an option that makes sense.
There's the Libertarian Party. She has to adjust a couple of her stances, but
she says she feels politically homeless right now. So
homeless people, politically
you take
homeless
it all.
People, feel free to come to the Libertarian Party. I've invited Elon. I invite MTG. I am inviting you. I'm extending the olive branch. Come check out the LP. You might like it. The water's fine, as they say. Next up, U.S. officials are slashing contributions to UN foreign aid. Up next, we'll look at how much money is headed abroad going forward and where it is going. The U.S. is announcing on Monday it will be rolling back its humanitarian aid pledge to the UN to about $2 billion, telling UN agencies in the wake of the funding cut to, quote, adapt, shrink, or die.
Now, $2 billion may seem like a lot, but it's a fraction of what the U.S. has spent in the past. This year alone, the U.S. has spent more than $3 billion, and historically, that's been as high as $17 billion.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio explained the move in a post on X, writing this: under the president's leadership, taxpayer dollars will never fund waste, anti-Americanism, or inefficiency. Today, the State Department and United Nations signed an agreement that radically reforms the way the U.S. programs, funds, and oversees unadministered humanitarian work. He continued, this new model will better share the burden of UN humanitarian work with other developed countries and will require the UN to cut bloat, remove duplication, and commit to powerful new impact, accountability, and oversight mechanisms.
As to where that $2 billion is going, the U.S. and UN will reportedly sign a series of separate memorandums of understanding with 17 countries that the U.S. has identified as priority countries. They will be able to first receive the aid, including the Democratic Republic of Congo, Ukraine, Nigeria, and Sudan. Some of the UN's top priority countries, like Afghanistan, Yemen, and Gaza, will not receive U.S. funding under the new structure. aid for Gaza will reportedly be handled on a separate track.
I think this is a just political winner, clearly. Go out, tell the American people, we're giving less money to the UN, we're giving less U.S. taxpayer dollars to people overseas. That's just, running up the scoreboard there. That's what the American people don't want their taxpayer dollars spent overseas. We spend billions and billions and billions of dollars on overseas programs. It's not popular. Americans want it to stop. So this is fine by me. We can cut more.
So I think it's a strategy to try to reshape and cut bloat, and that's important, right? We don't want duplicated programs or money that's not being used in the right way or just goes into one fund and then gets shuffled over because it was never used in a calendar year. But when I think about shrinking these agencies immediately, I looked into who can be affected by this. And I know that it's not always like, woe is me, all the countries around the world, and it's not the U.S. job to save everybody. But there are food programs like the World Food Program and IOM that are receiving billions of dollars, and they're going to receive billions less. And then we'll see that food rations will change. We'll see that there'll be reduced medical services around the world for different countries, fewer shelters for people to stay in. And so these are immediate effects that might take place within the next year that could lead to places like Sudan, Gaza, and Haiti having, and not Gaza because now it's been moved on to a different category, but even if we don't provide the same level of funding we did there, it will quickly translate into hunger and instability in a lot of these regions. So just to say, hands off, there's nothing we can do, we're funding too much, I mean, that doesn't seem like a good strategy.
Let's just think about Gaza for a minute. I mean, this is one of the great moral crimes here. We paid for its destruction because we give Israel money to buy our weapons, and they destroyed it, and now we're going to pay to rebuild it. I don't like that. I don't like...
But which one do you not like more? I mean,
I don't like either. I don't want to blow it up only to have to rebuild it a few years later.
Right, and you've argued the point that we should consider if Israel is doing anything that was beyond retaliating for being attacked.
Well, maybe they should pay to blow it up, and then they should pay to fix it.
Then maybe we shouldn't be involved, but we can't.
I think a lot of the American people
I don't think pulling the funding is a good. I mean, it just as a matter of
pull the funding now. I mean, we did pay to destroy it, so we have maybe perhaps.
Well, then this $2 billion this $2 billion fund or cutting it across the board in this moment is not the best strategy moving forward, especially when Gaza falls under that umbrella. That's what I mean. It's not. We can't. I mean, we can do it, but it's not the right thing to do.
The American people would like to pay for less destruction and then less rebuilding. That's my sense.
Fine.
Right?
Yes, I agree. I agree with that. I think that, we're talking about these efficiency reforms, but the world is facing new and unprecedented global needs due to complex issues around the globe, due to weather changes around the globe. There's several things that the UN provides funding for. And so when we think about those incidences rising and we think about the fact that America is now pulling funding, this is a bet that we're gambling on. Oh, we'll give less money and other people will give more and that'll balance the scales. And if it doesn't work, then what? We just allow the world to crumble because the US wants to be cheap in this one area that we were providing real aid for countries that are less fortunate. We're talking about Sudan, Congo, and we're just like, it doesn't matter to us. We just got to get our stuff fixed over here.
So much money. There's no plan to make them self-sufficient. It's not. I would support emergency funding. There's some crisis, right? A weather-related event or something. There's a famine. We're going to help. But it's never. It's just year after year. We have to get more food, more medical supplies. What can we build hospitals there? Can we set up trade program? They're growing something and we're develop the economy. Can we move toward a place where they're not just dependent on our aid, or is dependency on our aid preventing them from evolving to more stable market forms of meeting the needs of the people who live there? I don't know why we can't be. The permanent solution can't be America just gives you everything you need. That's not working as a system. Maybe that would be a compelling system if in response the people were so grateful that they then became politically aligned with America and our interests immediately, but that doesn't seem to be happening.
Yeah, I think that
there's still a great deal of resentment toward America in the third world and in the Middle East. And even though we're giving them billions of dollars. So, okay, maybe say thank you next time. We're yanking the aid.
So you're going down from 17 million to 2 million.
But that's the point.
Say thank you. That was
starving. That is the point of the aid, right? The people who in America who are defending giving it say we're doing this to engender goodwill about America in parts of the world where there's extremists who dislike us. Okay, fine. It just seems to be that that's not working because there's still these extremists.
And
They still hate
I'm
us.
all about self-sufficiency and having an end game to the goals that we put forth in other countries. But I don't think that going from in past years $17 billion of aid to going forward in 2026 with $2 billion of aid is the right strategy. I think that's a dramatic. 17 billion probably was way too much. But if it's going to be 17 billion, let's say again in 2026, at least then yes, I don't mind a strategy. If Marco Rubio said the president and I sat down and talked about these hospitals we can build, this training program we can do. That's an awesome idea. That is a great way forward to talk about stability in regions that could actually benefit themselves and have people that live there, train there, working there. But taking away more than half of the funding from past years, or even a third, of the funding is wild, because there's people that are definitely going to starve and get hurt. And we talked about this when Doge made a lot of these cuts that didn't become
Right, and I
permanent.
made many of the same arguments.
Yeah, and they're like, oh, well, I don't know about this. All these people getting hurt. Why can't other people jump in? It's like, okay, but if we just knee-jerk react to things and say, well, the president doesn't want to spend money there, we're not considering that there are people that are actually relying and going to live based off aid that they thought was coming in the immediate next few months and years that will no longer be here. And there's programs put in place and there's organizations. So oversight is one thing. And I think that's what we can do better. Oversight to make sure that every dollar is going to the right place. But completely just cutting funding this dramatically just because we want to and want other nations to jump in. I think it doesn't have to happen so abruptly. We can have conversations with other nations and figure out how they're going to implement and how we can wean away what we've already promised and have them jump in a little more without just pulling it all away and saying, y'all figure it out. What would Americans in a 1998 poll expect to happen in the year 2025? We're going to tell you next. We'll be right back after this. Americans in 1998 made predictions about the year 2025. With New Year's just around the corner, polling archives maintained by the Roper Center at Cornell University look back at some of those predictions.
USA Today and Gallup polled 1,055 adults. That was conducted in 1998 using live telephone interviews and showing that 69% of Americans did predict over the next 27 years the country would elect a black president. 75% predicted a deadly new disease would emerge, and 74% predicted gay marriage would be illegal and would be commonplace.
Some predictions did not hold up, like 66% predicted that the country would have elected a woman president, 59% expected a cure for cancer, and 61% expected that people will routinely live to be 100 years old.
Polls also show that nearly 8 in 10 expected Americans in the future to have less personal privacy. 57% thought they'd experience less personal freedom. 71% said it would be harder to raise children to be good people. I don't know if that panned out, but maybe it did. Do you think it's harder to raise your children to be good people?
I think we have access to a lot more, so it's like, don't be a jerk. I think that's a really important thing for a parent to do, is to raise your kid to
Well,
be
yeah, it's still valuable.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's gotten harder necessarily, but I'm not a parent, so I guess that's not for me to say.
Well, in this poll, I was surprised that in 1998, so many people knew or felt confident, like 70%, that there would be a black president, that
they got that one right,
that there would be a deadly pandemic. I mean, that's kind of weird.
Well, it's actually, I mean, if you think about it, there's kind of, on a historical scale, there's kind of like a deadly pandemic every 100 years.
So they were like banking on it.
The last one had been during the Spanish flu in the 19-teens. So we were about due for one, and
it happened.
Just playing the math game, it happened.
Yeah, and then I thought, I think that's fair.
As awful as
COVID
could have been.
No
woman president.
No woman president.
We could have a woman president, obviously.
Kamala could have won, and then you would have been even happier. You probably would have just been having the best 2025.
It is easier to be a right-of-center commentator when a Democrat is president. Then I can just be against everything they're doing. When it's Republicans in charge, it is my obligation to find things to defend or to put an argument what people on the right will say in defense of this. It makes my job more complicated.
And I feel so bad for you because I know you've been
feel
struggling so hard this
much.
year, because how can you say anything decent about what's happened so far and transpired? It's very tough.
Don't like the tariffs.
I mean, that's one.
People don't routinely live to be 100, but some people do live to be 100.
Yeah, I had a grandmother.
People routinely live to be
106.
like 90. You had a 106?
Yeah, she passed
Wow.
away 2 years ago. 106.
Wow.
And she was fully having a conversation like just lived by herself until about 102, and she moved in with my grandmother.
I'm down to one grandparent now. In their, I think about 90. I had 3 grandparents for most of my life. 2 of them passed away just recently, or like last 2 years. I even had great grandparents when I was young. I had quite a few of them. So
Wow.
I've been blessed with a lot of elderly relatives who lived, for the most part, well into their 80s and 90s.
And you know what's funny too? Like, we're having kids as a generation, and the generation after us, and even after them, are having kids later.
I know that.
And so,
is
like,
the
that's why
really
you got to
bad
have the
thing.
great grand.
I know,
It's like
I know.
I would love that
is-
to happen for a long time, but like so many of my friends are having kids at 40, and
I know.
you know, it's like, well, people are gonna have to live to 120 to have their
Right.
great grandparents around.
I mean, I don't have kids. I aspire to have kids, but I'm already 37, so.
So, do you think you'd have like a
Right.
couple kids, or you think you'd have like one kid?
Couple kids.
Couple?
We'll see. Who knows? Or maybe not.
Oh my gosh, this is
Never
breaking
too late.
news. I can see
I
you
could
like
be 60.
one kid.
I could be 80. It could be time for me to have kids. I'll be like John Tyler, President John Tyler. He had kids very late in life, like extremely late in life.
Like what age? Like past 60?
Yes, and
Wow.
then his son also had kids late in life. So there's the case that I think they might have passed away now, but there were 2 old men in the last like 10 years still alive, whose grandfather was President John Tyler, who was president of the United States in the 1840s. Isn't that amazing?
If you hurry up and get started, you could be like Elon Musk and have old kids and keep going.
In the
until
future,
they're
all
old
kids
age.
will just be a scion of Elon Musk or
Nick Cannon.
Yeah, they're going to repopulate the earth.
I knew you were going to say that.
What I don't know. What prediction should we make for the next 25 years?
For 25 years, I hope they cure cancer. That would be important.
That would be nice.
Yeah, I mean, I figure like with all the technology we have, maybe AI, because I know you think AI could do everything, like we talked about yesterday.
What
and
about
solve
flying
all
cars,
sickness.
teleportation?
I think in Saudi Arabia they're trying to have some flying car and this line thing called the line. It's like a taxi that flies.
Wouldn't teleportation be great? You could literally live anywhere and work anywhere and see anyone you want at all times.
Wait, I had something too. Something that didn't happen, I know we have to go, is that humans, they thought would have received or made contact with alien life form. 25% of people thought that would happen, and it didn't.
You know how I feel about that. That does it for us on Rising Live. Look out for more exclusive YouTube content coming your way later today. And be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the Hills YouTube channel so that you never miss any content. We will be back tomorrow and then in the new year. See you then.